Welcome back to another Doctor Who product review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Time Warrior action figure collector set, featuring the Third Doctor, Sontaran Commander Lynx, and a Sontaran spaceship pod. Now this was originally released in 2011 for £35 as a part of the Classic Series line of action figures, as created by Character Options and Underground Toys. It was originally a Forbidden Planet exclusive, and basically I never managed to pick it up. It was one of those sets that I simply didn't have the pocket money for, considering it was way back in 2011. I was 11 years old, and me being 11 foolishly thought, hang on, I've got one Sontaran pod, I don't need another. And later did I know that when I turned into a little bit more of a collector of Doctor Who products, I now have gone back and managed to buy the collector set on eBay, because of course those of you that are frequent viewers of this channel will know that Christmas just gone, I got the Time Crash collector set, a San Diego Comic Con exclusive, for 2008, and after buying that product, or at least getting it for Christmas, I kind of got a little bit of excitement for going back and wanting to try and fill a few of those gaps in my collection I've never managed to pick up. So I decided to do a little bit of scouting around on eBay and a few other online retailers, and I managed to find somebody in America actually selling this for a fairly reasonable price. I managed to get it to the UK for £50. That's including the actual price for the product, and considering it was £35 originally, I think that is a fairly reasonable price, and it is in fact a little bit cheaper than some of the UK sellers who are in fact selling it for around £80 to £90. So therefore, considering that this has just arrived, it's a brand new product, I thought why not review it for the channel, because I did in fact a few yesteryear reviews a while back for the original wave of Classic Series action figures. People seem to enjoy it, therefore I thought since I've just got this product, I may as well do a product review of it, so that is why I'm doing this for you all today. So taking a look at the packaging, of course it is the Russell T Davies era design. It is rather nice and nostalgic for me, and it is a little bit bigger than your normal Classic Series action figure collector sets, to of course compensate for the rather large golf ball spaceship on the inside. Now at the very top left of the box do of course get the contents of the set nicely listed, along with a nice image of the Third Doctor from the story, along with the air date being 1973 and the BBC logo. Along the very bottom trim we get the Doctor Who logo once again from 2005 onwards, along with the Time Warrior collector set title, along with the Third Doctor's dates. And then to accompany this we also get a few screenshots of Commander Lynx as seen in the actual story, the Underground Toys logo and the American safety sticker. On one of the sides of the box you get the contents repeated once again, along with some further images from the Time Warrior, along with Sarah Jane there being attacked by Lynx, along with at the opposite side some further images of Lynx. And then at the back of the box you get all of the dates of the Classic Series Doctors, along the very top the title of the set, an image of the Third Doctor along with Lynx once again, some company information at the very bottom, as well as a little write-up about the Third Doctor himself, and a little story synopsis about the Time Warrior. And then taking a look at the inside insert of the box itself, something that I can recall absolutely loving as a kid, we do almost have this diorama display environment featuring the location as seen within the actual story itself. So the Time Warrior of course was set, I do believe, in medieval times, so we have a rather nice woodland area at one side, and then just behind the pod we do also have the building that was used in the actual story, the castle. So it's a really nice way to in fact display the figures if you actually have the space, which I don't think I ever did. So starting off with the Third Doctor figure as seen in the Time Warrior, of course the first episode to feature Sarah Jane Smith, and of course the debut story for the Sontarans. Now this Third Doctor figure is pretty much exactly the same sculpt to every other Third Doctor figure. This figure may not be necessarily as accurate as it could be to what is seen within the Time Warrior, however it is still a rather nice representation. So starting off in the very middle of the costume with the white shirt underneath the actual blazer jacket itself. Now this is in fact a design that makes this figure look a little bit different to that of the Third Doctor as seen within the 11 Doctors set, that does also have a green blazer jacket. Now this time around they've gone with the sculpt that was also used on the Death to the Daleks Third Doctor figure, that does of course have the frilly shirt underneath that has been rather nicely sculpted with a few buttons running up the middle, and then we do also have the bow tie in there as well that this time round has been painted a rather nice dark blue sort of blacky colour, which is once again a rather nice sculpt. I love the way that the white actually stands out on this figure, and the same applies to the cuffs of the jacket as well, as it really does emphasise the actual green of the jacket, and it really does look nice when on display. The same white design does also appear on the cuffs of the jacket as well, which in the actual promotional images of the story, the cuffs of the jacket do appear to be a lot more bigger in design and certainly do poke out the jacket a lot more. However, due to that requiring an extra new sculpt, I kind of see why they've just gone with the standard design that is used on all of the other figures. Now, the big difference between this one and the 11 Doctor set version is the fact that these are painted white as opposed to a rather minty green colour. And then taking a look at the actual blazer jacket itself, once again this is the most common part of the Third Doctor figure that is pretty much used on every single Third Doctor release, therefore has exactly the same details to usual. So you do have the buttons running up the very middle that have in fact been given a rather nice sort of blackish brown paint tap, which once again make them stand out quite a lot. We also have the collar and the lapel running around the back of the figure, as well as two pockets at either side. And what is also a really nice detail is, if you look very carefully, we do also have a few stitching lines here and there, especially around the back of the actual jacket itself. As you can see, we have a few going up the spine of the figure, as well as quite a few creases, much like how the blazer jacket did in fact have within the series itself. As for the actual green, this is also rather nice and does stand out quite a lot. I do think that it is exactly the same green that was actually used on the 11 Doctor set Carnival of Monsters Third Doctor figure. Arms of the jacket are naturally painted in exactly the same green and do also have the standard sculpting of the creases here and there from the jacket itself. And we do also have the additional paint tap on the cuffs of the jacket, including 3 buttons down the side, which once again have been painted in a rather nice blacky brown colour. Much like the majority of classic Doctor action figures, one of the hands have of course been sculpted in order to hold the sonic screwdriver, which does nicely and easily fit into his hand. As for the sonic screwdriver itself, I actually got some quite nice and sharp paint taps. As you can see, a normal Third Doctor sonic screwdriver has the yellow collar section in the very middle, along with a few black stripes on there. And then we do also have the emitter at the very top that does have the black as well as red paint tap. As for the opposite hand, once again this has just been sculpted in your standard open palm position, and we do also have the detailing of a little silver ring on one of the fingers as well, which is a nice inclusion. As for the Third Doctor's trousers, there's nothing really too much to talk about here. Generally they've just been painted once again in a rather nice matte black colour. And then at the very bottom we do also have the shoes, which once again are the standard sculpt that have been painted in a glossy black colour. However, all of this has been given a rather unusual paint wash over the top, which is something of which that does only apply on this figure and pretty much none of the other Third Doctor releases. And as you can see, he's been coated in this rather unusual brown paint tap in order to give the impression of mud, like he has been trawling through a ditch or something like that. So yeah, very unusual. He doesn't really get this muddy in the actual story itself from what I can recall, but I suppose it is still a rather nice amount of weathering that does in fact make this variant of figure stand out a little bit more when on display, especially when considering that this is essentially an exclusive paint tap that is only seen on this version of the Third Doctor. Then taking a look at the likeness to the Third Doctor as portrayed by John Pertwee, of course this is once again the standard sculpt to any other Third Doctor figure, and it has to be said, I think I've got quite lucky with this action figure, because in my time collecting I've seen some rather horrific looking Third Doctor figures, to say the least. He's certainly a hit and miss likeness, some of which look really good and others look dead or possessed. It's one of the two either way. Normally the eyes are going all over. This one seems to be quite nice. As you can see, we have the paint taps in the middle of the face with the eyes and the eyebrows are rather sharp, with the iris in the middle of the eye there rather nicely brought out. Then the skin app itself is also rather nice. It's sort of a standard skin tone colour, and the lips don't really stand out too much either. It is a rather natural skin tone. Around the sides of the face you do get a few creases and things here and there to kind of represent the wrinkles in his ageing. You also have the hair in there as well, which does in fact have some rather nice looking paint taps. The general design is in fact rather a bright white colour, and then we do also have some washes that have been applied over the top. Certainly a bit of a black wash around the back here in order to emphasise some of the curls, and once again giving the hair quite a lot of depth. Once again, this has seen quite a few variations on other Third Doctor figures, but I in fact quite like this design of paint app, as it does stand out quite a lot, and I do think that generally overall, the likeness, it does look quite nice. It does certainly look like the Third Doctor, as played by John Pertwee. Unfortunately, we do have a little bit of a paint app bleed there around the sides of the ears. Almost the skin tone does leak onto the actual hair itself. However, it isn't too visible from the front, which is quite lucky. So yeah, overall, generally, this is in fact a rather nice design. And finally, going over articulation very briefly, we've all seen a Third Doctor's articulation before. We have 360 at the top of the arm, 360 at the upper arm, bend at the elbow at 90, we have 360 at the wrist, we have the waist articulation, the T-crotch joint, 360 at the thigh, bend at the knee, and then you would also have a little bit of head articulation in there as well. However, much like the majority of Third Doctor figures, this is in fact quite stiff, and I don't really recommend turning it too much, otherwise you'll get paint scratches around the sides of the neck. So yeah, definitely don't do that. But yeah, generally overall, pretty much your average classic action figure articulation. So overall, for the Third Doctor action figure from the Time Warrior, I think that if you're like me and has pretty much collected all the variants of the Third Doctor over the years, then at the end of the day, this is just another Third Doctor to add to your shelf. There isn't anything too special with this figure, and you know exactly what to expect. However, the paint apps are rather sharp, and I do quite like the addition of the green blazer in there as well. It is a rather nice colour of green. However, it is a little bit of a shame about the rather unusual cladded mud at the very bottom of the legs, because this is of course inaccurate as to what is seen within the actual story, or at least it is a little bit over exaggerated, but I suppose it's not really too much of a big deal if you've got the other Third Doctor figures over the years. So now moving on to the Portaloo, giant golf ball, spaceship, whatever you want to call it. It is of course the second version of the Sontaran space pod. Now this one is apparently as seen in the Time Warrior. Of course there is a few inaccuracies here and there. And yeah, I'm surprised that I've actually got this product, to be quite honest, to actually have this version of the Sontaran pod, because I struggle to find space for the other version that I've got back at home from the Sontaran experiment. And this version is pretty much nearly identical to that one. It is exactly the same sculpt, and there isn't really too much going on. It is once again hollow rotor cast, so it is a rather big lump of plastic, and it does in fact have a rather nice simplistic sculpt. You generally get the idea. You do of course have this diamond design that does run all the way around the side, that has in fact been etched into the actual plastic itself. However, this time round, one of the major differences is of course that we have this rather unusual mud spotted design coming up the side, which is something that was completely absent on the Sontaran experiment version. From what I can recall, that is just a basic silver with no weathering on whatsoever, so that is quite nice. And then of course around the front we do get the door, which once again is exactly the same. You have a little imprint at the side so you can kind of pull it open, and then once again this reveals the inside of the pod itself, that does once again look like a Portaloo. There's no hiding it. As you can see, we've got the toilet there in the very middle, and then we've got the thing that you can dry your hands underneath. It doesn't really look like the inside of a Sontaran space pod whatsoever. It's one of those things that quite a lot of people kind of dislike. It is a rather rough sculpt, nothing too much going on whatsoever. The figure can't sit inside or anything like that, but I suppose it's still nice that the door opens. I mean, it would have been nice to maybe have a hollow insert on the inside, or even a actual photo of the inside, much like how they do with the TARDISes. That might have been easier, but yeah, there's nothing really too much going on there. The less said about it, the better. And then we do have the door insert in there as well, which is one of the most notable differences for this pod, considering that this is now a burgundy sort of red colour, kind of, which is once again accurate to what is seen in the story. However, the door is in fact hinged on this side as opposed to that one, but you wouldn't expect to have that changed, considering it would require a brand new sculpt. And as per usual, we do get an ugly amount of company information there at the very bottom, along with this rather thick black base that does of course run around its entirety. That does of course sit in place. There is a few holes around the side, so it's kind of quite rough, but generally overall it looks nice, I suppose. Just also giving you a little bit of a closer up angle of the top of the space pod, just to give a little bit more of an impression of what the speckled mud design looks like. This is in fact rather nice, and it does very much look like speckled mud. However, the way that it has been imprinted is almost in a spiral, which is rather odd, and it does certainly make it look like manufactured weathering, which is a little bit of a shame. It doesn't look natural or anything like that. As you can see, we have almost bands coming around the side, which is a little bit odd, but still, it's a nice variant to make this look different from that other version. And of course, to finish off, tilting the intergalactic portaloo upwards a little bit to give a little bit of a look at the base. Once again, this has been given a little bit of a coat of weathering, but much like the Sontaran experiment design, we in fact have the detailing of thrusters that have been applied to the very bottom, once again in a rather nice, almost rustic design, with a little bit of silver, a little bit of brown rust in there too, which is quite nice. You don't really see that within the actual story itself, so it's nice that they've actually applied that, just to give it maybe a bit of extra play value and to make it look a little bit more like an actual spaceship from the far depths of space, as opposed to very much a portaloo that you would see on a builder's site. And of course, this is a really nice environment to be displayed alongside the Lynx action figure, especially if you have the Sontaran experiment set. You could kind of have both pods side by side, along with Lynx and Steyr with them as well. That would look quite cool if you actually have the space. So now moving on to the third and final figure of the Time Warrior action figure collector set, it is of course Lynx, arguably the main attraction for me buying this set in the first place, as he's the last classic series Sontaran that I needed to complete my collection, as played by Kevin Lindsay in the actual story, who did then go on to also play Steyr in the Sontaran experiment, as well as the other Sontaran that was seen very, very briefly in that story. And the unusual thing with the Sontarans is normally when monsters appear in Doctor Who, they get more successful the more stories that they appear in, and they get more developed, and the design generally looks a lot better. However, with Lynx, he is essentially the first ever Sontaran that we've seen, but he is also the best at the same time. There is something about Lynx that will never be replaced. He is simply brilliant in every way, and I think that it is really nice to finally have this figure to in fact add to my collection and to be able to display alongside the other classic series Sontarans. So the actual general sculpt of Lynx is pretty much exactly the same to all the other classic series Sontarans. The main body itself is pretty much the same design of that rather puff pad, almost boiler suit, and then you do also have the boots in there as well, which are in fact a brand new sculpt, and then you do also have the head, which has been uniquely sculpted for this figure to be like Lynx as seen in the actual story. So one of the best things about the classic series Sontaran figures is that all the heads are different, so all the likenesses and faces are different to look like other Sontarans. So taking a closer look at the main body of the figure itself, this has just been sculpted in a standard glossy black colour, and we do in fact have a few rather nice sections of detailing around this. So as you can see, we have a few piping designs coming down the side that is also used on the arms of the figure as well. I do believe that this has in fact been wrapped around the actual body, as it does seem to be a rather sort of more puffier type of plastic, almost like a PVC, that has been put over the top like a jacket. So this does look very nice and certainly gives the impression of the material that was used on the actual costume. Alongside the bottom of this design, much like with Steyr, we in fact have this rather nice, almost grated, glossy design in there that has got a rather nice silver paint tap. This does also continue around the back of the figure, and you do get a little bit of a better look at that pattern. And then the same does also apply for the back of the actual body itself. As you can see, we have a continuation of a few bits of creasing around the sides, as well as a little bit of piping that can also be seen on the arms. On the very side of his waist, we do also get the inclusion of his little communicator device that has been sculpted rather nicely. We do have the selection of a few buttons there at the very top, along with the dial section in the very middle. This time around, we do also have the black painted panel on there also, to make it look a little bit more similar to what is seen on the actual on-screen prop. This is in fact also exactly the same sculpt of communicator that is used on the Steyr action figure, however it just has a few alterations in its paint, but we do still have the dials in the very middle along with the red button there at the very top. We do also have the inclusion of the shoulder pads on the arms of the figure itself. These have been painted in a silver design, much like the Invasion of Time Sontaran, and unlike the Steyr action figure where these are in fact black. And also to note that the neck brace section is actually a different sculpt as well. We have a little bit of a piping design there at the very bottom. And then we do also have on the opposite side of the neck brace the Probic vent, which once again has been nicely sculpted. And I do believe that this is in fact once again a slightly different design to that of what is seen on all of the other Sontaran figures, and this time round it even has the little black paint tap in the middle. Moving down to the lower half of the costume, we have the thigh section, which once again has the continuation of that piping boiler suit design. However, this time round the thigh section on the left hand side is in fact using the sculpt that is also seen on the Commander Scar Invasion of Time Sontaran, where we in fact have this little holster section for the Sontaran's blaster stick thing, which I will be coming on to in a little bit. And finally, for the costume, we have the boots at the very bottom. Now, this is in fact one of the biggest changes for this figure, because unlike the other two Classic Series Sontarans, the design of these boots are completely different. The other ones, including Steyr and the Invasion of Time Sontaran, in fact have a little bit of armour around the sides and a little bit of a cone at the very back of the ankle. This time round, Lynx in fact pretty much just has some normal Earth-like Wellington boots. They basically don't have much design on them whatsoever. We do have a little bit of creasing around the sides, with also the inclusion of the silver sole there at the very bottom, but generally they are very basic, and they do actually make him stand a little bit taller compared to the other two Sontarans as well. But I do still really like that these have been included as a little bit of an alteration, especially considering that he is in fact a unique Sontaran because he gets his wellies from Earth, unlike any other. Lynx does in fact share the sculpting of his hands with the Invasion of Time Sontaran Classic Series variation, of course sporting the 3 fingers as opposed to the standard Earth 5 fingers that were of course seen on the sculpt for the Field Major Steyr figure, and only that version of Sontaran in fact. And of course these 3 fingers did in fact set precedents for the new series Sontarans as well, only having 3 fingers. Of course these have been painted slightly differently to the Scar figure, with a much darker skin tone to be the same in comparison to Lynx's head at the very top, being a lot darker with a little bit of weathering on there as well. Now, moving on to take a look at the accessory that comes with Lynx, we do of course have his little sort of gun stick thing that does look rather cool, exactly the same sculpt to the Invasion of Time version, and it is made of a rather flimsy looking plastic. As you can see, it does bend from side to side. Do have a few paint taps on this. Of course we have the holster there at the very top with a little silver band, and then we of course have the top section there with a little bit of silver as well as a gold paint tap at the very top. Overall it's quite nice and good to display with Lynx. Of course the little accessory can also be slided into the little holster on the thigh of the costume, which is a really nice little feature. And of course he can also be displayed holding or pointing the little gun as well, which is a rather cool display choice. Now of course moving on to the best part of the figure itself, it is of course the likeness to Lynx. Now this is a brand new sculpt that is only used on this Sontaran figure, and it looks absolutely stunning. This is my favourite Sontaran figure in my entire collection. I absolutely love it. I think I made that decision instantly as soon as I opened this figure from the box. I do really like the other Classic Series Sontaran designs. I think that all of them are cool in their own way, but there's just something about the Lynx likeness that looks really cool. I think that the design of the darker skin tone is in fact really effective and makes it stand out quite a lot. I do also love the weathering that has been applied to this as well, just giving it a little bit of a turn. As you can see around the sides, we don't just have this brown paint tap, we in fact have a lot of weathering that has been applied over the top, as well as a lot of blemishes towards the side of the face. As you can see, we almost get this scuffing, which is really cool. And of course Lynx is rather unique because he does have a little bit of facial hair as well. We do have a little bit coming out of the ears at the very side as well as behind the ears, and also on the cheekbones as well, which is a really cool feature. This hasn't been overdone, as you can see only on camera. Now you can see a few strands of hair coming around the side which have been given a rather nice grey highlight, but it's nothing too exaggerated, it's not too over the top, and it is still a really nice cool feature. Of course, taking a look at the back as well, you can see a few more creases around the side of the head, as well as a few more of those darker black paint taps around the side, which look really cool and very accurate to the makeup that is used within the actual story. And then this all comes around to the actual likeness as well at the very front, which has been really nicely replicated. Of course, we have the creases there at the very top of the forehead, really exaggerating the eyebrows that once again have a nice grey highlight in there, not too over the top. And then we also have those piercing eyes in the very middle, which have been really nicely painted. Once again, a very sharp detailing. I love the way the white of the iris stands out, especially compared to that of the pink, which is around almost the eye socket sections. Once again, really cool, a nice variation of the skin tone. And then of course we move down to the bottom of his face that includes a rather unique looking mouthpiece, which once again has been really nicely sculpted, including even the inclusion of his tongue sticking out there, which is of course something that Kevin Lindsay did do quite a lot throughout the actual story. It was one of his own ideas to stick the tongue out to make him look like he's almost slithering a little bit like a snake, which is really cool, and I'm glad that they've actually sculpted that in there. And we do almost have a flesh skin tone that has been applied over the top, a really nice paint tap. And then of course to finish all of that off, we have the goatee there at the very front in a little bit of a Roger Delgado style almost, once again with a nice grey paint tap that has been applied over the top of this. So in case you can't tell, I really love this sculpt. It is a great likeness to Lynx, and overall is my favourite likeness to any of the classic series Sontarans. It is probably one of my favourite monster likenesses, I actually think. I may go as far to say that, because it's possibly one of the best detailed heads that I've seen on one of the classic series action figures. And just in case this figure wasn't cool enough, in case you wanted to hide the likeness for some random reason, of course no Sontaran would be complete without his really cool looking helmet. Now especially for Lynx, this does of course slide in place, much like any other classic series Sontaran. Mine is in fact a little bit stiff, as you can see, so it does take a little bit of a while to actually push in straight, but this does look really cool. Once again, it has been given a rather nice silver paint tap, much like the Invasion of Time Sontaran. But what I love the most about this head is we do also have this really lovely sort of stippled design there at the very top, I do believe to detail the rank that he has came from, I think. We also have this little bridge towards the very top, as well as this rather nice grating section between the eyes where he would of course look out. So this is really cool, a rather nice painted piece. There's nothing really too much going on at the very back, but as I say, this doesn't fit on completely amazingly. There is a little bit of a gap there, which is a little bit of a shame, but I don't mind too much. To be honest, I think that this figure actually looks really cool, both with the helmet on and off. There's just something about the silver contrasted with the black of the uniform that looks really nice. And just to give you an impression of what the figure actually looks like from a distance with the helmet on, as you can see, he looks like a really powerful soldier. Once again, it really nicely shows the different silver all the way throughout the uniform, and generally looks really cool, both with the helmet on and off. Now to give a comparison of what Commander Lynx looks like next to Field Major Steyr and Commander Score, I think that they all look brilliant together. Of course there is a few similarities between all of these figures across the board. Of course generally the actual Major body itself is exactly the same, of course shares exactly the same detailing. These two actually share the same communicators, and these two actually share these same thigh sections. Of course this one does have the alterations in the communicators. Of course both Field Major Steyr and Commander Score have those more bulkier boots, and there's generally something about Lynx that actually looks just a little bit more streamlined and thinner, simply because of the use of the Wellingtons there at the very bottom. He does in fact stand just a little bit taller than the other two Sontarans, which is a nice little touch. And then of course we have the likenesses in there as well. I think what I really like about all three of these Sontarans is that because the head sculpts are completely unique and different for all three of them, all three Sontarans have their own personality. Of course this one stands out quite a lot because it has that really emphasised jaw section and the big black eyes that kind of make it look like he's been in a little bit of a fight or something. And of course with both of these being played by Kevin Lindsay as well, they do have a little bit of a similar style on the actual heads. However, once again this one is a little bit more emphasised and wider, and there's just something about Lynx that actually stands out quite a lot compared to all of the others. I think that he looks really cool, and once again the skin tone being a little bit darker is a lot more effective. But all these action figures are in fact really cool, and to be honest I recommend picking up any of them if you actually get the opportunity. But by far for me, my favourite one is of course Lynx. And just in case you were curious, here is what all three Sontarans look like with their helmets put in place, which once again, all of them are actually quite unique. So overall, for the Doctor Who The Time Warrior action figure collector set as a part of the classic series run of action figures from Character Options and Underground Toys, of course this was released I do believe back in 2010-2011, so this has been quite a long time coming to finally add this set to the collection after previously buying the Sontaran Experiment set that is of course exactly the same format to this one, having the Sontaran Pod, the Doctor and a Sontaran. I think that both of the sets do have their own little advantages. Of course, the Sontaran Pod itself is nice, it's lovely to add something to the collection that is rather unique, especially within the classic series, who didn't particularly get too many deluxe products too often. The Third Doctor is a nice inclusion also, it's a nice variant. I love the green of the blazer and I love how sharp the paint taps are. However, as I said earlier, it is a little bit of a shame about the mud smears that are at the very bottom of the legs, but for those of you that have other Third Doctor figures, it's nothing really too special. It is pretty much exactly the same to all of those other releases. However, Lynx the Sontaran is most certainly my favourite of the classic series so far. I'm really happy to finally add him to the collection and actually complete the Sontaran action figures. He's by far my favourite. I absolutely love the paint taps on the face and I love how much of a warrior he looks. I love the contrasts between the silver and the black of the costume, and generally overall the figure is absolutely flawless. I do love it. So if you do get the opportunity to buy this set, I certainly recommend doing so. I in fact got this shipped from America, I do believe for around £50 when converted in currency, which considering the recommended retail was originally £35, I do believe. That isn't in fact that bad. That is actually quite a good increase in price considering that this set is considerably rare at this point. I wouldn't really say it's the rarest by any means, but it is still quite a considerably rare set from the classic series of action figures. So yeah, as I say, if you have the opportunity to pick it up at some point, and if you're a classic series collector, I certainly recommend doing so because it is a nice set, certainly to compare to the Sontaran Experiment set one with the other commander of the Sontaran as well as the Fourth Doctor. Overall, a nice product, has some great variants, and one of which that I do recommend if you are a collector of the classic series. So thank you very much for watching this product review of the Time Warrior collector figure set. It's almost been a throwback yesteryear product review, so if you would like to see more of these in the future, of some of the previously released Forbidden Planet exclusive classic series collector sets, then maybe comment down below or maybe like the video to kind of show support, and then I may consider doing a few more in the future of the other collector sets that I have in my collection. If you have any questions about this product, then please do also leave them in the description below and I will reply to them at some point in the near future. And thank you very much for watching. I shall see you all in more Doctor Who content over the coming weeks. So yeah, thanks for watching. I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.